Eat Simple rule number 3 is break fast epically. Break fast epically. This one will change the game. It's Eat Simple rule number 3 because it layers over top of the other 2 rules that come before it. Eat Simple rule number 1, always answer hunger with a meal. And by way of review, that means whenever you feel hungry, it is time to eat a meal all the way to satiety. So that requires you to understand what hunger feels like and understand what satiety feels like. And that is objectively hard for people, especially women, but I believe you can do it. Eat Simple rule number 2 is prioritize protein for all the reasons that protein is important that you probably know about. It helps preserve your lean body mass and all this good stuff that women need to be focusing on as they age. From my perspective, one of the reasons why I like my clients to prioritize protein is because it is the nourishment that your body is really asking for when it cues up the hunger signal. It's asking for full nourishment. And that means amino acids, minerals, hydration, all the micronutrition, and the macronutrition, the fuel components of the food. The body needs it all. When the body cues up hunger, it's not just asking for fuel, it's asking for nourishment. And animal protein specifically delivers an abundance of nourishment. So when you think back to Eat Simple rule number 1, always answer hunger with a meal and eat to satiety, protein is the food that delivers the satiety signal. So now you've got something going on. Eat Simple rule number 3 is break fast epically. So when your body cues up the first hunger of the day, this is a big opportunity for you. And this is kind of in the realm of circadian meal timing. There is a substantial body of research that supports the idea of early time restricted feeding, which is a long way of saying putting most of your food into the early part of the day. From a circadian rhythm perspective, this makes a ton of sense. And I'm going to explain to you how this makes a ton of sense, and it's going to blow your mind. But I just want to start by saying, from a cultural perspective, we've been doing it the other way for a long time. What by that I mean, our biggest meal of the day is typically our dinner meal and then all the snacks we eat before bed. It's sort of like we have afternoon snacks, dinner, then evening snacks. We are really consuming most of our daily food calories after dark, right, in the evening before bed. And that is very upside down from a circadian rhythm perspective. Okay, so remember that you are an animal and you are nature, right? You are nature. And all of nature is attuned to the rising and setting of the sun and to the seasons and to the moon cycles. And I know, it gets a little kooky, gets a little woo, and I'm not a kooky woo person, but this kind of thinking simplifies this all for me, actually. When I sort of zoom out and contemplate myself as simply a part of nature, simply part of the greater world, it actually helps me simplify. Because it's like, oh, I don't need to micromanage or overthink this. The whole way my body is designed to work has been established over millennia and is based simply on the rising and setting of the sun. Oh, well, that makes it easy. It does make it easy for me. In the morning, the sun rises. And you're lying in bed. You don't necessarily know it's rising, but your body can perceive that it's morning. Your body is very good at perceiving that it's morning, whether that's light receptors picking up a changing light coming through the window, right? Or simply the sort of internal clock you have that knows that you've been asleep for 8 hours. Now it's time to sort of remove the sleeping biochemistry in your body and turn on the waking biochemistry in your body. It's sort of like this handoff between the sleeping factors of biology and the waking factors. This all happens, right? This all happens. If it's working well, it all happens. And you wake up because the sun rose, and your body only knows that the sun rose and that there's a day ahead of it. It doesn't know what you're going to do. It doesn't know if you have a workout on the agenda or a sedentary day at your desk or a road trip. It doesn't know if you're trying to lose weight. It doesn't know if you're trying to squeeze into a bikini for your beach vacation. It doesn't know what you're going to do or what you want to do. It only knows that one thing. The sun rose. There's a day ahead of it. The body's chemically set up to get ready for the day ahead of it. So the first appetite signal that shows up in the early part of the day is a very important appetite signal. I'm not here to say breakfast is the most important meal of the day, but your first hunger is the most important hunger of the day, because that's your body kind of doing the math, or your body's doing all the checks and balances, right? Amazing. And it's saying, okay, here's where we're at. Here's what we need. Remember, your nutrient needs are tightly regulated by your brain. Your brain always knows how much of what you need. Your macro coach doesn't know how much of what you need, but your brain does. So in the morning, the brain is kind of waking up. It's clocked into work, okay, to keep this sort of metaphor going of clocking in, clocking out. And it's doing its little inventory of what's available nutrient-wise and what needs to be shored up nutrient-wise. And it's saying, okay, here's your hunger signal. It's basically tasking you as the pilot of the meat suit with going out and satisfying its needs to run your body. That's all hunger is a polite request from your body to shore up its nutrient needs. I mean, that's not anything to worry about. That's a beautiful relationship you have with your body, right? So the body sends out this hunger signal saying, here's what we need for the day ahead. And truly, your body is trying to get most of its nourishment in for the day ahead. Like, the body doesn't really work on a meal structure. The body doesn't know that humans have created the 3-meal-a-day paradigm, or personal trainers created the 7-meal-a-day paradigm. The body doesn't know that. The body's ancient. It only knows in this moment what its nutrient needs are. And so that first hunger of the day is the body saying, wow, the sun just rose. We have the whole entire day ahead of us. The body knows basically what time it is on the clock, the circadian clock, and it will say, here's all the nourishment we need for today. If you can answer that hunger all the way to satiety appropriately, then hunger for the rest of the day is a much quieter beast. And what that means for you as a modern human is now you are less plagued by urges and cravings and snack attacks and hangry and fidgety emotional boredom hunger. It's gone. It vanishes. I've seen this happen in a matter of days. I've had a client who said to me after one day of doing this that her sugar cravings went away. It's that powerful. Remember, I said this in the second episode of this series, which is the idea of prioritizing protein to play to your satiety signal. When you're well satiated, your body doesn't cue up hunger for anything. But when you feel hungry, you're simply hungry. Just go answer it with a meal. If you are effectively doing this, answering hunger with meals appropriately, eating to satiety, cravings vanish. And this is really, really prominent when we break fast epically. This is the meal that sets the metabolic tone for the rest of the day, shall we say. This is the one that sends the signal back into the body and says, we are in abundance here. We have all the nourishment we need, body. Here it all is. Here's all of it. Here's every drop of nourishment you're asking for, body. So I want to tell you the parameters of the epic break fast. They are when your body cues up the first hunger of the day. Now, I don't care if that's at 7 a.m. at breakfast time or 10 a.m. or 11:30 a.m. Doesn't really matter to me when it is. Whenever that is, that's your first hunger of the day. That's the one that we're going to answer here with the epic breakfast. Now, I just want to stay here for a moment and explore this idea that we think breakfast is a morning meal. A lot of people will say to me, I'm not much of a breakfast eater. I have my first meal at 10 a.m. I'm like, well, that's breakfast. Or have my first meal at noon. Oh, well, that's breakfast. It doesn't matter when it is. It's the first meal of the day is your breakfast, right? Breakfast time is a cultural construct. Lunch time is a cultural construct. Dinner time is a cultural construct. Snack time is a cultural construct. Your body doesn't necessarily know on the clock what time it is. It knows from a circadian and nutrient need perspective what it needs, but it actually doesn't care about our modern human meal and snack times. So if you're intermittent fasting and you don't want to eat breakfast and you have your first meal at noon, well, you're still having breakfast. You're just having it at noon. Okay. And by the way, I'm not a huge fan of intermittent fasting. I just don't think the people that I work with should be fasting because nobody knows how to eat. I'm here to teach you how to eat. That's what this whole series is about. Like, hey, let's remember how to eat. If you don't know how to eat, then you have no business fasting. Small sidebar. Okay. So number one, when you feel your first hunger of the day, it doesn't matter when it is. Don't worry about it. Don't even stress about it. When you feel your first hunger of the day, answer it with a protein dominant meal. And eat that meal all the way to the point of satiety. So I'm going to explain those last two pieces. This is a protein dominant meal. I want this to be an almost carbohydrateless meal. Not because I hate carbs, because I don't. Not because you should fear carbs, because you shouldn't. Just because the protein foods are the ones truly that your body is asking for in that first hunger of the day, because the animal protein foods are so highly nutrient dense. Remember, amino acids, minerals, micronutrition, hydration, macronutrition, everything the body needs can be really found with a high rate of bioavailability, which means the body can use it inside animal protein because we are animals that eat other animals. That's our biological truth. That's our metabolic truth. We are an animal that eats other animals, and animal protein delivers immense amounts of nutrient density for us. And that first hunger of the day being so important, we need to deliver as much nutrient density as we can in the front part of the day as we can. That's why I like it. It's not because I want you to eat fewer carbs at breakfast. It's not really about restricting carbs. It's about prioritizing protein in this meal especially. I will talk about what the subsequent meals of your day look like because I don't want all day, every day to just be meat, meat, meat. I think that's too boring of an eating paradigm. So in a future episode, I will talk about how the rest of meals go. But for today, we're just zeroing in on breakfast. This is a protein dominant meal. For example, I will often have half a chicken for breakfast, maybe with a little side dish like half an avocado, cut up into cubes, or if berries are in season, I'll have a little dish of berries. But it's predominantly protein. Half a chicken sounds crazy for breakfast, but you know what else sounds crazy for breakfast? Pancakes. Think about it. We're going to have a bunch of like syrupy sweet cakes for breakfast. That's weird. That's not normal. Okay, so if you think chicken for breakfast sounds abnormal, I would just ask you to kind of reframe why you think certain foods are normal for breakfast and why certain foods feel abnormal. And just realize that a lot of our normal breakfast foods are also cultural constructs. And I'm not trying to be conspiratorial when I say this. It's just like, why do we think cake is an appropriate breakfast? It doesn't make any sense. I think that meat is an appropriate breakfast. Your body is wanting all the nutrients that are in meat. What is the point of having a muffin or a smoothie for that matter? I really, really have a low opinion of smoothies. That's not an epic breakfast, which we'll soon learn. So, for example, I might have half a chicken. I might have steak and eggs. I might have bacon and eggs. I might have fish. I might have a pork chop. I don't care if it's a breakfast food or not. I'm here for nutrient density and also yumminess. I do want my food to be yummy. That's crucial as well. But this is a protein dominant meal. Now, as I described in a previous lesson, protein is highly satiating because it delivers all the nourishment the body wants. And the satiety signal is triggered when nutrient needs have been met. And protein does this like crazy. So protein is thought to be the leverage point for the hunger and the satiety signal. That's why at this important hunger of the day, the most important hunger of the day, the first hunger of the day, we want to double down on protein in that meal. Now, there's a side benefit to this. If you have a protein-forward breakfast, then you're not having a carbohydrate-forward breakfast, and then you're not going to be chasing the blood sugar crashes that are inevitable after having a big carby breakfast. A bowl of cereal or like a low-fat yogurt and a banana or something lame, or a smoothie, which is made of fruit and almond butter and yogurt, and all of these very sort of cheap, fast breakfast foods that burn out quickly. They do not deliver a durability of satiety. You're just riding the wave of hunger and blood sugar crashes all day long when you have a carbohydrate-forward breakfast. So I'm not mad at carbs. I don't want you to fear carbs, but for the first meal of the day, we don't want that to be a carbohydrate-forward meal. You're just setting yourself up for a bit of a metabolic roller coaster all day long. On the flip side, a protein-forward breakfast establishes a satiety that endures for many, many hours without feeling any spikes and crashes in your energy, in your mood, in your cognition. You are good. You are solid. That's another benefit to it. It really delivers this very reliable durability of satiety and energy. So it's a protein dominant meal eaten all the way to satiety. Now that's an interesting one. And this comes back to my first rule, eat simple. Rule number 1, always answer hunger with a meal and eat to satiety. And in that lesson, I shared that people don't even know what satiety feels like. It's a very foreign concept, but it's what your body's been waiting for you to do. So I really would encourage you to practice the art and science of eating to satiety when your body cues up hunger. Now, the epic breakfast, we want to deliver this satiety for sure. We want to deliver this satiety, no questions asked. Okay, so your first hunger of the day is one that you want to fully, fully satisfy. So I use this example of what we call the metaphorical dozen egg omelet. Metaphorical dozen egg omelet. It means it doesn't have to be eggs. It doesn't have to be 12 eggs, but just go with me on this metaphor. So imagine you are feeling your first hunger of the day, and you have eggs in the fridge, and eggs are a breakfast food, so you feel as though that makes sense. I still want you to explore other non-breakfast foods, but let's just keep it simple for now. You're going to have eggs. You're probably thinking, well, how many eggs will satiate me? Because Aaron's saying that this meal has to be protein dominant, it has to be eaten to satiety. I wonder how many eggs will satiate me. So you might be doing that calculus and you might say, well, I think 2 eggs is pretty good. I think I'll have 2 eggs. Or maybe I'll have 3 eggs. So you're going to start crunching the numbers on how many eggs is going to satiate you. But the thing is, you don't know. Nobody knows. You don't know. Your macro coach doesn't know. Nobody knows how many eggs is going to satiate your hunger except your body, which really, really knows, unquestionably knows. So, for example, if we just play this example out, let's say you crack 3 eggs in the pan and you sit down and you have your 3 egg omelet. You might finish that omelet and you might say, yeah, I think I'm satiated. Yep. But that's not what we're going for here. It's not this idea of vague satiety. It is solid satiety, which I'll explain in a second. Now, if you had the 3 egg omelet, it might satiate you for a while, but you probably would be hungry. It's a good chance you'd be hungry again a few hours later, which is fine. But that's just one of the signals that tells me that maybe we didn't tap into the absolute edge of satiety. So let's go back to the dozen egg omelet. Now imagine you're cracking eggs into the pan and you're thinking to yourself, I truly don't know how many eggs is going to satiate my hunger. Let's find out. So you crack all 12 eggs, throw some veggies in there, maybe a little cheese, make it yummy, make this massive omelet, put it on the plate, sit down and start eating. And the eggs will tell you when to stop eating. Eggs portion control themselves. Protein portion controls itself. You will not overconsume protein. You can't. Now, the feeling of satiety, this is going to sound crazy. The feeling of satiety is, you're taking a bite of egg, the bite comes up to your mouth and you feel a mild revulsion at the idea of taking that bite. I don't want this bite of food in my mouth. I talked about in the protein lesson, this concept of palate fatigue, how the palate inside our mouth is the gatekeeper of our satiety signal and our nutrient needs. The palate is going to cue up an expression of no more bites of this, we're good. And so you're going to feel that satiety sensation at your mouth. It's not a fullness in your stomach. It is, I do not want to chew and swallow this bite of eggs. And when you get to that point where you put the fork down and you push away from the plate, you are fully satiated. You have hit the point of satiety. If that sounds completely crazy and foreign, I'm not surprised because most people don't eat that way. Most women, for sure, do not eat to satiety. Heaven forbid. But it's a really cool / necessary experience to explore. You must, at some point, it's time it is time to eat all the way to satiety. I don't know about you, but I'm pushing 50 here. And for most of my upbringing, we were told to eat to 80% fullness, watch your portions, manage your portions, eat less. I'm telling you to eat all the way. I'm telling you to eat enough. And that's going to feel so strange to you. You won't like it at first. I actually had somebody in one of my programs. She came in to the coaching call and she said, hey, Erin, I've been doing this epic breakfast and I don't know, I feel really weird. I've been feeling really weird ever since I tried doing it. Like, I want to trust this process, but it feels weird. I'm like, oh my gosh, tell me about that. Like, what do you mean it feels weird? And she said, well, okay, like I make the breakfast, and she gave me an example of what she made and it was very good. She did a great job. And she said, but then it's like, I don't want to eat again. Like, it's like I feel kind of full for the whole rest of the day. And I said, oh yeah, that's satiety. That's how it works. It endures. You tap into the edge of satiety and then you ride the wave of a durability of satiety that is mind-blowing. You might go 5-6 hours before you feel even a hint of hunger again. And when you feel that second hunger, it's going to be so quiet. You're not chasing ravenous snack urges anymore. You're not hangry. You're not flying off the rails if you don't eat every 2 hours. You are fully satiated. She had no idea what this feeling was. She described it as feeling weird. She's like, I feel weird. I'm like, girlfriend, you are satiated for the first time, maybe in your adult life. Congratulations, you did it. So anyway, I tell that anecdote because it does feel strange for women. I think men do this actually all the time. Not all men, but I think that men are less restrictive. They'll go to satiety, they'll feast. But women would never. Are you kidding me? It's time for us to feast. It's time to freaking eat, gal pals. So we're going to satiety at the breakfast meal. All I'm saying, let's negotiate on this. When it's your first meal of the day, definitely go to satiety. Please definitely go to satiety. You are sending back into your body such a crucial signal. Because remember, let's go back to this nature. The sun rose, Your body has no idea what you're doing or what you're going to do. All the body knows is that it has nutrient needs that it requires to function your body for the whole day. And if you partially answer that, you didn't do your job. If you fully answer it, you did your job. You did the thing your body was asking you for. That is a beautiful harmony. Think about that harmony. The body says, here's everything we need. The body comes to you with the inventory list, and you deliver all the inventory. Here you go, body. The body feels seen, heard, felt, understood. It's a beautiful thing. You are now in relationship with your body again, which is your birthright. Which is your birthright. It's always been your birthright to lean into trusting your body's signals, but it really has been trained out of you through diet programming. The Epic Breakfast has so many benefits, and one of them is that it reharmonizes us to the rhythms of our body, these metabolic rhythms, these circadian rhythms, the rhythm of nature. I'm a nature girly, so again, I love this idea. Maybe you're not a nature girly and you think it sounds wacky, but maybe you're more of a systems person. From a systems perspective, maybe you can appreciate that the complex system of the body has checks and balances, and you, as the operator of the machinery, are required to provide the inputs to make sure all those needs are met. You can intellectualize this however it feels right for you. You can project manage this if that's your vibe. But there is no denying that when the body asks, your job has always been to answer. That has been trained out of you, but I want to put that back into you. It is an incredible metabolic gift. The Epic Breakfast is an absolutely game-changing factor in my program, so much so that when clients come to work with me, that's the first thing I get them to do. So despite the fact that it's Eat Simple rule number 3, it is the first action I get my clients to implement because it's got such tangible parameters. When I feel my first hunger of the day, I will answer it with a protein-dominant meal and eat all the way to satiety, and then casually observe the durability of that satiety as the day goes on. That's it, that's all. And as I've touched on already in this conversation, people find that their hunger, their cravings, their snack urges, all of this stuff quietens. Their boredom eating, their mindless eating, their stress eating, their emotional eating, all the things that people ascribe to as character defects vanish. You suddenly feel in control around food. And that is a very good feeling. And that's what I want. That's the feeling I want my clients to have. I want them to have the quick win, a feeling like, I feel good. I feel fed. I feel totally at peace with food. I'm not battling my cravings and urges all day. It feels really good. The other thing about the Epic Breakfast that I think is really important is that we kind of get food handled in the early part of the day before the day gets away from us, because I work with busy people and our lives are insanely hectic. And so maybe you've had this experience where you have the best intentions of taking good care of yourself, eating well, exercising, self-care, whatever it is, journaling, you have all these plans, all your New Year's resolutions, those types of things, right? And then the day gets away from you. And you look back on your day and you said, oh my gosh, I didn't journal. Oh my gosh, I didn't take a walk. The day got away from me. Life got in the way. Guess what, fam? Life is definitely going to do that. Life is going to get in the way, as it should. And just because we're busy, hectic, chaotic modern humans, there's just almost an inevitability that your whole day, every day is going to get away from you. It is. So one of the reasons I like the Epic Breakfast is that it's like, let's get nourishment handled up front. Like, deliver the nutrition your body is asking for up front, because we know the day is going to get crazy. You're probably going to forget to pack a lunch. You're probably going to forget to thaw something up for dinner. Now, the subsequent meals that you choose to put together for the rest of your day, they become less of a factor because you really did handle most of your nourishment in the front part of the day, which you should, right? So it's really useful in execution to break fast epically. It just makes the whole day of eating feel easier. It just makes the whole day of eating feel easier, which is amazing. I'm going to talk about the rest of the day of eating in a subsequent lesson. But for today, I really want to zero in on the breakfast, the Epic Breakfast. Break fast epically. Just try this. Literally, just try this. Whatever time of day you're listening to this right now. Maybe you already had your breakfast today, no problem. Think about tomorrow's breakfast. What will you have for breakfast tomorrow? Could you try the dozen egg omelet? Metaphorical. Could you try the half chicken? Could you have a steak and eggs? Maybe take yourself out to a breakfast joint. Go to a diner. They make epic breakfasts at diners. Just avail yourself of a very protein-forward meal eaten all the way to satiety, and then simply pay attention to how hunger shows up for the rest of the day. Metabolically, this is a massive move. It sends a really abundant, safe signal back into your body that the food environment is totally good and you're picking up the signals of the body, and the body loves that idea of you coming back into harmony. And for those of you that are really more interested in data, there is a compelling body of evidence on this principle of early time restricted feeding, which is shifting our food intake into the earlier part of the day, because the waking part of the day is when the body is poised to take up and put fuel to work. The late part of the day, the before dinner snacks, dinner meal, after dinner snacks, the body is actually preparing to go to sleep. And having most of our nourishment in the late part of the day is extremely upside down. I want you to ponder that as well, because that's actually going to lead us into the next lesson, which is called the funnel. And it is the proprietary part of my process, and I cannot wait to teach it to you. But in the meantime, break fast epically, baby. What's it going to be? What will you have for breakfast tomorrow?